I gave up my college scholarship to help my best friend start his dream business. But one night, I woke up to find him in bed with my girlfriend, the two people I trusted most. Before watching the video, please tell us in the comments, which country are you watching from? My name is Ethan Parker, and I am 27 years old. For years, I thought loyalty was everything. I believed friendship and love could never turn against me. But one night, I learned that sometimes betrayal doesn't come from enemies. It comes from the people sleeping under your roof. Jake wasn't just my best friend. He was like my brother. We met in high school, both dreamers with big plans. When he talked about starting a small repair shop, I was the first to believe in him. I even gave up my college scholarship to help him chase that dream. We worked side by side, building something real, something solid. Sophie came into my life a year later. She was kind, gentle, the type who laughed with her whole heart. Jake and Sophie became close too, always joking, always comfortable. I loved that they got along. I used to tell people how lucky I was to have both of them in my corner. The three of us were inseparable. We spent weekends fixing cars, having barbecues, and making plans for the future. Jake wanted to expand the shop. Sophie talked about us buying a home. I was saving for a ring, ready to make her mine. Everything felt perfect. I truly believed I had it all. But perfection is fragile. It breaks without warning. And looking back, there were signs. Small ones I ignored because love makes you blind. Sometimes I'd walk into the shop and find them laughing quietly, their conversation stopping when they saw me. Other times, Sophie would get texts at night, claiming they were just from Jake about business. I didn't question it. Why would I? Jake was my brother. Sophie was my heart. Trust wasn't a choice. It was automatic. I didn't know that while I was out chasing clients, they were chasing something behind my back. One evening, Jake invited us both to celebrate a new contract he'd landed. We stayed late at the shop, drinking and laughing. Everything felt normal, even warm. But when Sophie went inside to grab her phone, I caught Jake watching her walk away, and his eyes lingered too long. I brushed it off. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe I was imagining things. That night, I remember thinking how blessed I was. I had my dream job, my best friend, and the woman I wanted to marry. I couldn't see that the two people I loved most were already taking everything from me, piece by piece, behind my back. But life has a way of revealing the truth when you least expect it. And when it finally came for me, it shattered the very meaning of trust. The first real crack in our perfect world appeared so quietly, I almost missed it. Sophie started spending more evenings out, always saying she was helping Jake with business strategy. I believed her at first. After all, we were all trying to grow the shop. But soon, her late nights turned into early mornings, and the excuses began to sound rehearsed. She'd come home smelling like motor oil and perfume, a strange mix that didn't belong together. When I'd ask if she'd eaten, she'd smile tiredly and say, "Jake grabbed us something." Every word she spoke sounded normal, yet somehow wrong. Her laughter had changed, lighter, freer, but not for me anymore. One night, she left her phone on the table while showering. A message popped up. I didn't want to look. I never snooped, but the screen lit up with Jake's name. Just 2 words. Same time, my stomach tightened. I told myself it had to be about work. Still, that message burned in my mind all night. The next day, I stopped by the shop unannounced. Sophie wasn't there, but Jake was. His tone was too casual, too forced. "Hey man," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Sophie's out running errands, right?" The way he asked told me he already knew. Something in his eyes, guilt maybe, flickered and vanished before I could call it out. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself I was being paranoid, but every small inconsistency built on the last. Sophie's texts became shorter. Her affection turned colder. Even her laughter when she was with me sounded different, like a song she no longer believed in. Weeks passed, and I began to see patterns. She'd leave the house around the same time Jake closed the shop. Once, I called her while she was supposedly at the market, and I heard music, the same playlist Jake always blasted while working late. I didn't confront her then. I told myself I'd get proof before letting doubt destroy everything. One Friday night, I drove to the shop just to surprise them, to bring dinner, to show support, to feel like part of my own life again. When I arrived, the lights were on, but the main door was locked. I walked around back and heard voices, hers, his, laughing, whispering, close. My hands trembled as I knocked, but suddenly the lights went out. Silence. Then the door opened. Jake stood there, his hair messy, his shirt half-buttoned. "Hey, Ethan. Didn't expect you." His voice cracked, but his smile didn't. I wanted to believe it was nothing. I wanted to think I was overthinking again. So I forced a grin, left the food, and drove home with shaking hands. But deep down, I knew the people I trusted most were hiding something dark. And soon, I'd find out exactly how deep that betrayal ran. It was a Friday night, quiet except for the sound of rain hitting the windows. Sophie had come home late again, saying Jake needed help organizing invoices. I nodded, pretending to believe her, pretending I wasn't already drowning in doubt. She kissed my cheek, whispered a tired good night, and went straight to the bedroom. I followed an hour later, lying beside her, staring at the ceiling while her breathing slowed, but sleep wouldn't come. Something in my gut twisted, a warning I couldn't ignore anymore. Around midnight, my phone buzzed with a message from Jake. "You awake?" My heart skipped. I didn't reply. Instead, I set the phone down and closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. A few minutes later, Sophie's phone lit up on the nightstand. She turned toward it slowly, trying not to move the bed. Then she slipped out of the sheets. The house creaked as she walked down the hall. I waited. Then, through the soft hum of the rain, I heard a knock, our front door. My chest tightened. I moved quietly, following the faint sounds of whispers and muffled laughter. My hands shook as I peeked around the corner. There they were, Sophie and Jake, sitting on the couch, inches apart, their voices low but full of warmth. His hand brushed hers, and she didn't pull away. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it. Then she laughed, that laugh, the one that used to belong to me. I felt it like a knife twisting under my ribs. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. I wanted to burst in, to shout, to end it all right there. But instead, I stayed still, watching the two people I loved most betray me in the home I built for them both. Jake leaned closer, brushing a strand of hair from her face. She whispered his name like it was a secret prayer. I stepped back, my vision blurring. When Sophie finally led him toward the bedroom, something inside me broke. I didn't move. I didn't scream. I just stood there, hearing the door close and knowing the truth I'd been too blind to face. Every laugh, every late night, every lie had led to this moment. I went to the garage, sat in the dark, and stared at the walls for hours. My mind replayed every memory, every promise, every "I love you," every handshake between Jake and me. It was all poison now. The storm outside grew louder, matching the one inside me. By dawn, I was still sitting there, empty and cold. I could have confronted them that night, but I didn't. I wanted them to think I was still asleep because I needed time. Time to think, time to plan. Betrayal had ripped something out of me, but what they didn't know was that it also woke something else, something sharper, stronger, and far more dangerous. What would you do if someone you loved betrayed you like this? Comment below. The morning after that night felt unreal, like I was living someone else's life. Sophie woke before me, humming softly as she made coffee, like nothing had happened. I stayed in bed, pretending to be half asleep, just listening. Her voice, once warm and familiar, now sounded like an echo of something dead. She kissed my forehead before leaving for work. I stayed still until I heard the door close. When she was gone, I sat up, my mind spinning. Rage boiled under my skin, but I refused to let it explode. I needed control. I needed patience. I needed to think clearly if I wanted to. Hurt them both the way they hurt me. I opened my phone and looked through her messages again. Every text confirmed the truth. They'd been meeting for weeks, at the shop, in my home. Even on nights she told me she was out with friends. Jake texted her that morning too. Last night was perfect. He's clueless. My hands trembled as I read it, but I didn't respond. I deleted the message, letting him think I was still blind. That was the moment I decided. My revenge wouldn't be loud. It would be slow, quiet, and devastating. That day, I went to the shop as usual. Jake greeted me like nothing was wrong. "Rough night?" he asked, smiling. I wanted to smash his face right then, but instead I forced a grin. "Just tired," I said. My calmness confused him. That was good. Let him relax. Let him believe his lies were safe. Over the next week, I played my part perfectly. I joked with them. I acted normal. Sophie even started to believe I was distracted by work. But behind the mask, I was collecting everything. Texts, calls, receipts, even bank records. I learned Jake had used my name on several business deals. He'd borrowed money under our partnership and spent it trying to impress her. Hotels, jewelry, dinners. Every lie they told left a paper trail, and I followed it like a map to their downfall. At night, I lay beside Sophie, pretending to sleep while my mind burned with plans. Every time she whispered, "I love you," I whispered back, "I know." But inside, those words turned to stone. I didn't love her anymore. I didn't even hate her. I just wanted to watch everything she cared about crumble. One evening, I looked at myself in the mirror. The same man who once trusted blindly, now a ghost wearing his own face. "Not yet," I whispered. "Let them feel safe." The silence had become my weapon. They thought I was broken. They thought I was asleep. But I wasn't. I was wide awake, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I found out Jake's business was deeper in debt than he admitted. He'd borrowed money using my name on informal partnership notes without consent. Those loans had interest piling up like a storm about to break. I learned he'd spent cash impressing Sophie with dinners and expensive gifts. She smiled at him under dim lights while pretending it was business. I kept quiet, reading bank statements with a cold and steady focus. Their lies left a paper trail, and I traced every false payment. Each receipt, each hotel bill, was proof they thought I would forgive. They believed betrayal could hide behind charm and shared jokes. But desperation makes people careless, and carelessness always leaves fingerprints behind. I created a fake investor profile, perfect names, and plausible backstory. I signed virtual agreements and wrote terms designed to look irresistible. Jake loved big promises. He always chased quick solutions without thinking. I sent the offer through a professional email, hidden behind corporate proxies. Vanessa, actually Sophie, forwarded the message excitedly to Jake without hesitation. His eyes lit up when I described investment with no immediate collateral needed. I made the deal sound urgent, limited, exclusive, exactly his weakness. He called me late that night, voice shaking with greedy anticipation. I kept my tone steady, pretending to be an excited, silent partner. He signed a preliminary memorandum, trusting in what he thought was fortune. I included clauses that required immediate personal guarantees in fine print. He didn't read the attachments closely. Excitement blurred his common sense. Sophie urged him forward, whispering about finally escaping financial strain together. They both believed the fake investor would rescue their collapsing dream. When Jake signed, he unknowingly agreed to transfer shop ownership under default terms. My plan was never to steal. It was to expose their true recklessness. The next step was subtle, a follow-up email asking for verification documents. He sent tax returns and personal guarantees, each signed and notarized sincerely. Those papers sealed the trap. Legal leverage rested in unsigned consequences. I stored every contract copy on a secure drive under encrypted folders. Patience is an asset when betrayal breeds hasty, greedy decisions everywhere. I never raised suspicion, continuing to joke with them about future plans. They told friends about the investor like children boasting about a secret. Community trust wrapped around Jake like a blanket, hiding his lapses in judgment. When the documents were complete, I set the legal wheels into motion. A quiet email to my lawyer started the process to enforce agreed terms. Within days, banks froze accounts after auditors reviewed newly submitted documents. Creditors called, suppliers halted deliveries, and the business's lifeline began to fray. Jake panicked, begging me for help he never asked before in desperation. Sophie texted me pleading for intervention, her messages full of regret and fear. I read every plea with my palms cold and heart empty. Stark, I refused to answer most calls, letting silence do its slow, sharp work. Their empire crumbled under the weight of agreements they signed with eager hands. The morning the trap closed, alarms rang through the empty shop suddenly. Employees gathered in the break room whispering about frozen accounts and audits. Jake burst in, face pale, hands trembling like a guilty child today. He babbled about a mistake, about missing documents, and panic now, please. Suppliers called, creditors threatened, and phones never stopped ringing today nonstop either. I watched them crumble while keeping my face stone cold and unreadable today. Sophie texted desperately, begging for help, begging for any mercy please now. Her messages flooded my phone, each one laced with frantic regret today. I read them coldly, hands steady, heart numb and empty today. He called me, voice thin, pleading like a man drowning in debt. I let his call ring until it finally went silent and died. Sophie sent photos of invoices and signed forms, begging for mercy please. I opened each file, tracing signatures, noting every reckless approval she made. Their arrogance became clear in the careless paperwork they signed for sure. Banks froze accounts, suppliers reclaimed parts, and debt collectors arrived that day. Jake begged the staff to calm down and trust him right now. Employees stared, trust shattered, whispering about betrayal and loss all around now. Jake's face crumpled the moment creditors showed court orders and handcuffs appeared. He looked at me with pleading eyes, searching for salvation and hope. I heard Sophie sobbing through closed doors, voice raw and thin today. She came to the shop hysterical, asking me to intervene kindly, please, at her. Feeling nothing but calm, controlled emptiness, and resolve. You betrayed me, I said softly, voice steady, not shouting, but listen. She fell to her knees, gripping my hands, begging forgiveness loudly now. I helped no one. I walked away and shut the door quietly. Legal notices arrived at their home, sent to every registered address immediately. Suppliers reclaimed tools and machinery, hauling away years of work with force. Jake pleaded with contractors to relent, offering loans he couldn't honor anymore. His creditors publicly displayed default notices outside the shop windows for all. People stopped trusting Jake. Whispers turned into scathing judgment everywhere now today. A reporter called, smelling scandal and quick headlines today for the story. Brandon's name circulated too, his reputation crumbling by association everywhere across town. He vanished from calls, leaving Sophie alone to face consequences and shame. Sophie begged me again, promising she'd confess everything publicly and take responsibility. I arranged meetings with lawyers, presenting evidence she had signed and approved. Her face went pale as each paper confirmed her complicity without excuse. The judge issued temporary injunctions, freezing remaining assets immediately and starting investigations. Jake received a summons. His creditors demanded immediate repayment in full today. Their lives collapsed within days, faster than rumors spread through the entire town. Sophie called me one last time, voice hollow and pleading for help. I listened briefly, then ended the call without offering consolation or pity. Silence became my answer. Their screams became the sound of justice today. If you were in my place, would you forgive or walk away? Tell me in comments. The day their world collapsed, mine finally found quiet, steady ground again. I woke early, brewed coffee, and opened the shop with calm purpose. Silence felt different now, not lonely, but focused and clean. I changed the locks, updated licenses, and filed new ownership documents. The sign outside came down, replaced with Parker Auto and Fabrication. Fresh paint covered stained walls, like dignity reclaiming a bruised name. I sold old junk parts, clearing clutter they'd used to hide problems. Cash returned to the account, small but honest, built without lies. I created a ledger by hand, every number facing daylight now. The first week was slow, but I kept working without complaint. I greeted every customer personally, looked them in the eye. People had heard the rumors and watched carefully from a distance. I didn't argue with gossip. I let my work answer. An elderly man brought a failing pickup, expecting another expensive disappointment. I rebuilt his alternator carefully and charged him only parts. He left smiling, then returned with his brother 2 days later. Word of mouth began moving like morning wind along the street. I offered weekend workshops, teaching basics, tools, and safe road checks. Fathers came with sons. Single moms came with notebooks and questions. Community slowly replaced the hollow space Betrayal left inside me. I built structure like a house, foundation, framing, roof, then windows. Mornings belonged to repairs. Afternoons went to calls, quotes, and orders. Evenings were paperwork, marketing, and planning the week with disciplined consistency. I made a small website highlighting honest pricing and guaranteed timelines. A high school kid, Miles, asked to apprentice for experience and gas. I taught him torque values, patience, and pride in clean work. He reminded me of young friendship, only this time without knives. 2 veterans applied next, steady hands and steady eyes. Needing another shot, I hired them both, trusting character over cheap charm or noise. Together, we forged a team from people who respected the craft. I returned to the gym, rebuilt strength rep by rep quietly. Sweat purged poison memories faster than any argument or revenge speech. At night, I slept deeper, not dreaming of doors or whispers. I stopped checking my phone for apologies I didn't need. Instead, I tracked invoices, deliveries, and the week's clean profit margin. Small victories stacked like bricks, straight lines replacing my shattered walls. Vendors noticed our reliability and extended credit on fair, respectful terms. A local paper ran a story about workshops serving single parents. Cars lined the street the following Saturday, hopeful and patient. I shook hands, crawled under hoods, and listened more than I spoke. Trust returned slowly, like spring thaw across old, cracked sidewalks everywhere. I bought new lifts, calibrated tools, and installed a spotless alignment rack. The floor shined, the lights brightened, and confidence filled the air. We added fabrication services, building custom brackets and exhausts on request. Orders arrived from neighboring towns, then from 2 counties away. My calendar filled with work, booked honestly, no favors or secrets. I drove by the pier at dusk and finally felt light. The past still existed, but it no longer owned tomorrow's hours. I wasn't trying to show them anything. I was building me. Power didn't feel loud anymore. It felt disciplined, controlled, earned. I understood now that empires rise when the builder respects the blueprint. Mine was forgiveness for myself, accountability, and relentless, quiet consistency. The boy who once gave everything away had learned boundaries finally. The man standing here guarded his name like a home's front door. And my shop, my name, stood straight in the morning sun. Months passed, and my life felt whole again, balanced and steady finally. The shop thrived, the team grew, and peace became my normal rhythm. Every morning started with the sound of tools instead of old memories. But closure isn't just rebuilding, it's facing the ghosts when they return. One afternoon, while closing up, I heard footsteps approach the front door. When I looked up, Sophie stood there, thinner, pale, and hesitant. She looked nothing like the woman I once loved. Life had stripped her down. Her eyes held both shame and exhaustion, the kind that time can't hide. "Ethan," she whispered, "I just wanted to see you one last time." I leaned on the counter, silent, letting her fill the space with words. She told me Jake had left town after losing everything, running from debt. She was living out of a friend's guest room, picking up shifts at diners. Her voice trembled when she said, "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted peace." For a moment, I almost pitied her. But then I remembered that night, the laughter behind my door, the lies whispered into darkness, the betrayal itself. I looked at her and said quietly, "Peace doesn't come from apology. It comes from honesty. Something you never gave me." Tears welled in her eyes, and she nodded slowly. "You deserved better," she said. I replied, "I know." My voice wasn't angry. It was calm, final, absolute. She turned to leave, pausing at the door. "You really rebuilt everything," she said softly. I smiled faintly and answered, "Not everything, only what was worth keeping." As the door closed behind her, I felt no victory, no thrill of revenge, just stillness, the kind that follows a long, hard storm. The ghosts that once haunted my nights finally faded with that closing door. Forgiveness didn't mean taking her back. It meant freeing myself completely. Later that evening, I drove out to the pier where Jake and I once made plans. The air was cool, the water dark, but calm under the moonlight. I tossed my old shop key, the one from our partnership, into the sea. It sank without a sound, just like the pain that had lived inside me. For the first time in years, I felt clean, not proud, not angry, just free. The past had taken enough from me. I wasn't giving it another second. My empire wasn't built on revenge anymore. It was built on resilience. They had broken my heart, but I'd rebuilt my soul, stronger, sharper, untouchable. When I looked at my reflection in the dark water, I barely recognized him. The man who once begged for loyalty now stood carved from peace. Because true revenge isn't destroying others. It's becoming someone they could never destroy again. This is how my girlfriend and my best friend betrayed me. Should I forgive or move on? Tell me in comments. If this story hit your heart, tap like, share it with someone who's been betrayed, and subscribe for more real stories of strength, loss, and redemption.